welcome to episode 203 of the Corner of Knit and Tea. My name is Laura. I'm also known as Fluffy K on Ravelry, Fluffy Kira on Instagram and Twitter. I blog over at thecornerofknitandtea.com, and that's where this episode and every episode show notes will be. I have an Etsy shop where I sell my handspun yarns called The Corner of Knit and Tea. And we have a Ravelry group called The Corner of Knit and Tea. If you haven't come and checked us out, please do. Hi, how are you? It is Sunday, October 14th, and it is really a fall day today. The low last night was 35, and it has been in the high 40s today, and rainy, and it is gray, and I'm sorry because the lighting is probably terrible. I do have my light on, but I have like no natural light because it's so gray and dim and yuck outside. Which is fine with me because I would just rather stay home all curled up under blankets and craft, but it does make for odd lighting. So welcome to the podcast. If this is your first time trying me out, thank you for giving me a shot. I know there are a lot of podcasts out there, and if you are a returning viewer, thanks for coming back and hanging out with me again. So how are you guys? I had a pretty good week. I am still adjusting to working at home, and my hours are not quite what I want them to be, which sounds great until I actually get the paycheck. I kind of finished my office space this week, and I did a little tour over at the Well-Appointed Desk, and I also posted some photos on Instagram. So if you're interested in seeing a little bit more about my office, that post went up on Thursday at the Well-Appointed Desk, which is thewellappointeddesk.com. And one of the things that I was really excited that I did, if you follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen, I got a bulletin board for the wall over there, and I wasn't exactly sure what I wanted to put on it, and then I ended up hanging up all of my swatches from various knits for the last several years. So that was kind of fun. I really like it. I think I have more swatches elsewhere. I think I'm gonna have to hunt around because I didn't seem to find any handspun, and I've done quite a few handspun sweaters, so I'm sure I have some handspun swatches. And the fun thing about that board is I'll get to keep switching it out as I make more things. I think the ones I like the best, I keep looking because the board's like right over here. The ones I like best are the ones with cables and color work and really interesting things, although I do have just some plain stockinette swatches because I like the colors of the yarn. So that was kind of a fun, easy, got a bulletin board from Target, just put up the swatches with push pins, and now I can look at them for inspiration and switch them in and out. So that was kind of a fun thing this week. Otherwise, I got a lot of crafting done, some of which I can't show you, so that's a little less easy, but I got a bunch of stuff done that I can show you, and I'm starting to think about more and more projects. Of course, with fall weather, I just want to hibernate indoors and knit. And I'm starting to think about the last few things that I need to knit for the kids for the year. And then usually what happens is at the end of the year, I kind of have a rush up through Thanksgiving to finish holiday knits. And then after Thanksgiving, I basically have a month where I'm like, I want to cast on stuff for me. So I think that's what I'm going to do. I have some handspun I'd like to work with. I have some shawls that I sort of meant to knit this year and did not get there. I'm going to cast on a new sweater for Nanny Swaymo, and a couple other things. I kind of tossed the stash this week because I was looking for some new project combos. I had a couple things that I was looking at. One was, well, I have a bunch of ideas. Kind of crazy. A friend of mine just finished a Dotted Rays shawl, which is by Stephen West, and she did it in all kinds of speckles. So I kind of tossed the stash to see if I have speckles. The pattern called for it in 4 colorways. She did hers in 3, and I really liked the way hers came out. So I went looking, and a lot of my speckles and like coordinating skeins, I only have 2 skeins for. And I really like big shawls, and I don't want to buy any more yarn right now because that's really, I'm trying not to do that. So I tossed the stash, but I found a bunch of things that, not that I didn't remember that I had, but some things I'd been looking for. I found my skein of Nomadic Yarn Sweater Weather, which is perfect because it's almost Rhinebeck. So that might be my next pair of socks on the needles. And then I found some super squishy superwash merino that I bought at Rhinebeck 2 years ago to make a hat. And I actually went ahead and, even though I'm not really a mohair person, I went ahead and bought some of the hedgehog fibers, the kid silk or mohair singles to hold with it. And so I pulled that project out so I can make a quick hat. And I have a bunch of other ideas of little things that I'd like to do. And I don't know how many I'll get done before the end of the year. I'm trying to at least cast one off before I cast another one on. So I'll be working on that this week, so maybe I can cast something else on. So let's start. First of all, my husband teases me every time I do this. I'm going to lose viewers of the podcast because the podcast is the corner of Knit and Tea, and today I'm drinking a nice cup of coffee. I do like coffee. I have a little trouble with coffee because sometimes it upsets my stomach, but every so often I just have a taste for it. And I did this afternoon, and we had a bag of from a local roastery, and I can't remember what it is, and I forgot to mark the bag because I bought it at the market, and where you can just pull the beans and then put them in a bag, and you're supposed to mark on there, and yeah. Anyway, I think this is French caramel cream. It tastes sweet and creamy, and then I also put in some milk and sugar. But I had quite an adventure making this today because, well, let me take a sip. So my husband and I do not drink a ton of coffee. We drink a little bit. And for our wedding, we were given a coffee maker and 2 coffee mugs by one of our guests. And the funny thing is that when I went to look up the coffee maker, it seems like one of those coffee makers that was probably a free gift with purchase. Not a problem. Anyway, they gave it to us, and we have now been married for 10 years. So a little over 10 years ago. And we have used it on and off since then, but again, we probably use it maybe half a dozen times a year. I mean, not a lot. And it's an electric coffee pot. Well, so I put the coffee in there this afternoon, and I was all excited about brewing a nice cup of coffee and making the kitchen smell nice because I love the smell of coffee. And nothing happened. And so I said to my husband, the coffee maker might be kaput. And he, of course, took that as a sign to take it apart and figure out what was wrong with it because he's an engineer. And he couldn't. So then I had to boil water on the stove and try and pour water through a filter into the coffee pot. And we have decided we're going to replace it with something, but we're not sure what yet, whether we'll do like a single serve pot. I like making coffee fresh from the beans and stuff, so I don't necessarily want like to do like single cup pods per se, but of course you can get the refillable mesh pod that goes in there, and so then I could just make my own coffee. So I might do that. I don't know. We haven't decided. But for all the hullabaloo, I have a cup of coffee today, and I hope that my viewers won't. I hope that you all won't hate me for drinking coffee. Normally I'm a tea girl. I'll be back to tea next week. And this is in my Greenbridge pottery mug. They are, I believe, in the Carolinas, and I got this at Maryland Sheep and Wool a couple years ago, and I've been using it all week because it's a great mug. So, coffee today, in a mug, bad lighting, I don't know, it's a weird weekend. So, let's talk about the knits. The one that you guys have seen a million times is my Brown Sheep sweater knit along. I am hosting the knit along in my group. I am using Prairie Spun DK by Brown Sheep, and the colorways are Rain Cloud and Coneflower. I finally pulled the labels out of the bag to bring them with me. And I have a sleeve. So last week I showed you I had finished the body. This week I knit my plain sleeve, and then one of the things she suggests is that you can put just one row of the color at the sleeve to kind of echo the color work, and I liked that. I thought that was kind of a nice touch. So first sleeve done, just needs a second sleeve. I want to finish this week. So this is for the Brown Sheep Knit Along. It is being sponsored by Brown Sheep and hosted in my group, the Corner of Knit and Tea. The rules are fairly simple. The cast on was September 1st, but it goes until November 30th, so there is still time for you to join in. Knit any size sweater in any Brown Sheep yarn. Like I said, I chose Prairie Spun DK, but you have all the Lamb's Pride, all the Nature Spun, the Cotton Fleece, and a million other yarns that they make in a ton of different colorways. They make great workhorse yarns. Prairie Spun is just a smidge rustic. It's really not rough, but it's definitely a more woolen yarn. Stratosphere is their new DK and Superwash. I've been doing some other things in that, and I knit some hats for the kids in that. Anyway, it is not too late to join us, particularly if you are going to join in NaNiSueMo, National Knit a Sweater Month, which starts November 1st. Grab yourself some brown sheep and a sweater pattern. Like I said, for the brown sheep knit along, you can knit any size, any sweater, any weight yarn. For NaNiSueMo, in order to be eligible for prizes, it has to be 50,000 stitches, so it would probably have to be an adult sweater, but that's only if you want to double dip. The grand prize in the Brown Sheep Knit Along thread is a sweater quantity of Lamb's Pride donated by Brown Sheep. We also have prizes from Eucalan and from Knitter's Pride Needles. So if you are interested in playing along, there is still plenty of time to join in. I don't think I'm going to end up doing a second sweater for that knit along because I don't have more brown sheep in stash, and I have a billion other sweater quantities that I'm trying to work my way through. Next week I will show you what yarn I'm using, and I need to kind of settle on a pattern. But the yarn is really nice speckled yarn, and I think I'm going to do kind of a simple cardigan. So this is, I didn't even talk about the pattern for this. This is Humulus by Isabel Kramer. It is, Humulus is the word for hops. So these are hop flowers or hops flowers. And I am knitting it exactly per pattern. I believe I'm knitting the medium 1 size, which was for a 38 bust. It is a little oversized. It has a few inches of positive ease. Excuse me. And that is fine. And I did the colorwork section twice, but everything else only once. And I'm super thrilled with this, and this is going to be great, especially on chilly days. So this week I'm going to do the second sleeve. I also went through and wove in all my ends today. So the only thing it needs is a sleeve and weaving in those ends, and then I am done. So very, very excited about this. The sweater pattern was great to knit. Main body of the sweater is on 6s. Cuffs and collar are on 5s, and the color work I did, I went up a needle size to 7s. So hopefully next week will be the last time you see this for a while. Other projects that I'm working on. Last week I showed you that I had cast on for a pair of socks using the Mountain Colors Twizzlefoot that I am using for a review. This is the beautiful yarn. It has silk in it. The colorway is Snapdragon, and it is pinks and oranges with some reds and a little bit of brown. I had hoped to finish the sock, but instead I finished the sleeve. So you get the sock probably 2/3 complete. I still have a little ways to go on the foot and the toe. The pattern that I am sort of inspired by is the London Bee Ridge socks from the Knitting Expat. That's Mina. The one thing that I did differently is hers calls for a German short row heel, and I prefer a heel flap and gusset, so that is what I did. But otherwise they are simple socks with just these pearl ridges on them. And I am getting, like I said, I'm about 2/3 of the way through, and I am loving this sock yarn. I'm loving the way these are knitting up. They're kind of pink and then fiery colors, which remind me of fall leaves. Maybe not so much the pinky purple, the kind of magenta-ish, but all the little bits of like orange and red and stuff, those remind me of fall. So these are kind of some nice fall socks. My plan is to try and finish these by the end of the month, since I am reviewing them. So far I'm really enjoying the yarn, and I think they're going to wear nicely. So that is what I'm working on. So we are actually going on a small trip this weekend. My husband is running in the, well, he's doing the I-35 corridor race, which is he's going to run half a marathon here in Kansas City, and then we drive north to Des Moines, and the next, he'll run his half marathon here in Kansas City on Saturday morning. And then we drive 3 hours north up 35, that's why it's called the I-35 corridor, into Des Moines, and then Sunday morning he'll run another half marathon in Des Moines. Because I am a sucker for punishment, I signed up to do the 10K in Kansas City and the 5K in Des Moines. So I will be doing 15 kilometers this weekend, which is roughly about between 9 and 10 kilometers. Or sorry, between 9 and 10 miles total for the weekend. The 10K is 6.2 and the 5K is 3.1. So I guess technically that's 9.3. So that's what I will be doing, but we will also be driving between the places and then chilling out on Saturday evening before Sunday's race. So I'm going to bring my socks because I think that will be the perfect projects. I'll probably be driving because the boys, Wes and a couple other of his friends that are going with us are going to be running. So I'll probably end up being the designated driver both days because they'll be super tired, but I will still have time to knit my socks once we get up there. And I'll finish my race at least an hour and a half before they finish theirs on Sunday so I can take my socks and knit. So that is all the knits. No, it's not all the knits. Sorry. Last week I showed you some Briggs & Little and talked about participating in the Briggs & Little holiday knit along, which runs from September 1st through November 15th. And I talked about the fact that I was going to make Wes some slippers, and I mentioned that I might use the A33. I think I called it A133. It's actually A33. It's the Fiber Trends Felted Clogs pattern by Bev Gillespie. That is the one that I've used over and over and over. I've probably knitted 20 times at least, and I love the way the pattern comes out. I don't love the knitting of it because you're kind of, she has you do a variety of things, and that's on really big needles, and I always find it awkward and my hands hurt when I do it. This year I decided to go with Briggs & Little so that I could participate in their knit along, and because I was interested in trying out their yarns. And their yarns are pretty rustic, but I think are gonna felt nicely, I hope. Some people say they've had trouble felting with the base that I'm using, but I have seen other people who have felted. They just said it took 4 or 5 times through the wash. So I'll just go to the laundromat and sit with quarters. Anyway, the pattern that I ultimately decided to go with, because I looked and looked and looked, and then I found another pattern, and somebody said she'd knit a bunch of the Fiber Trends Felted Clogs, but she liked this pattern even better. So that's what I decided to do. It is called Men's Felted Slippers, and it is by Monique Ray. I will link it in the show notes. It actually doesn't have that many projects, but they look a little bit more like what I think clogs look like the Dutch clogs. Like, they're kind of shaped around the foot. They do not have a pointy toe. The first thing my husband was like, he was like, "Are you making me elf slippers? Am I gonna have pointy toes?" And no, I am not. Anyway, so what I did this week is I whipped up the soles, and these are the soles. Now, remember, I know these are huge. They're enormous. Remember, they are going to felt. I'm also not clear. I am on gauge, so I'm going to take measurements before I felt them, but they may end up too big. That may just be the case. It's a new pattern. I'm trying it. The one thing that I do like about the pattern is that it comes in all different, well, there are a couple things that I like so far. And I've only done the soles, but here's what I like so far. One is the pattern comes in various men's sizes. I think the smallest is an 8-9, and then it goes 9-10, and then 10-11, and then 11-12, 12-13. So there's a lot more variety. Just the felted clogs are medium and large. And even the mediums come out a little big sometimes if I don't get them felted down quite enough. And so Wes has been saying he's looking for something that will fit his feet more. So that is number one. Number two is the way the Fiber Trends clogs are knit. You actually knit the slipper sole kind of going back and forth on a long needle, and then doing some short rows in there, and then kind of folding it in half. I don't know exactly how to explain it, but you knit it in a long line, and then you kind of fold it this way, and you seam the sole together in the middle of the sole, and that's how you make your foot. On this one, this is just garter stitch back and forth with some increases and decreases to do some subtle shaping around the, first you're increasing from the toe out, and then you're kind of decreasing as you get towards the heel. The thing about this sole is I feel like, okay, if it ends up too wide for my husband's foot, I can take a couple stitches off of either side. If it ends up too long, I can abbreviate and do a few fewer rows in here. So with the longer one, it's a lot harder to figure out dimensionally where things are and how I should modify the pattern for his foot. But this one, I feel like I can easily modify it if it's not right. So I did the soles this week, like I said. Now I'm going to move on to the tops of the feet. And just as a reminder, the tops of the feet are going to be done in Briggs & Little. It's Heritage, and this is the Green Heather colorway. And I really liked the way these colors looked together, so I think they'll be nice. The pattern itself does not call for two tones, but I ordered the yarn as if I was making the other set. And so I ordered the two colors in roughly the quantities that I needed for the other set. So I'm hoping that I can do this and they won't look too bad. I think it'll be fine. And then the other thing is this pattern does not call for double soles. I haven't decided if I'm going to do double soles. The Fiber Trends do, and I feel like that maybe helps them wear longer and make them a little bit more cushy. I have plenty to do a second set of soles because I got both of these soles out of one ball, and I have another ball. So like I said, because I'm used to doing the double soles, so I ordered enough to be able to do that. I'm going to make them first and see how I feel about them, and then I may put a second sole on at the end. So this week I hope to get to some of the tops, but again, my priority is going to be the sock and the sweater, and then once I finish the sweater, I think I might cast on for a shawl. We'll see. I have some things that I'm thinking about. So that is the other pattern that I'm working on knitting wise. And I will, once I finish some more stuff, I will bring some more stuff to show you, because like I said, I have a million things I want to cast on because it is knitting season. October is the greatest time of the year. It's the gateway to all the knitting season. I realize if you live in the southern hemisphere, it is not because it's about to get hot where you are. But I am living vicariously through my, I am living through coming into winter. So that's what I'm focusing on. I totally understand if your seasons are, if you're working the opposite, you're moving more towards cottons and summery things. I've been watching on Instagram today, a whole bunch of places around the US have snow already, and I'm pretty glad we don't have snow yet, but this is the part that I like, the fall as it starts getting cooler and getting towards Christmas. It's like January and February that I really don't like. But yeah. So let's talk about spinning, and then I will be done. Last week I showed you a braid of Southern Cross fiber that was a recent club colorway, and it was called Plot Twist, and it was turquoises and purples and greens, and it is gorgeous. And it was merino cashmere, 80% merino, 20% cashmere. And I talked about how I thought it might be challenging to spin because I've had trouble with it in the past. And it actually was not. It was very pleasurable to spin. The fiber was beautiful. David's Fiber Prep is absolutely exquisite. I never find neps or other things. I don't find a lot of things that I have to pull out of it, meaning that when he sends me anywhere between 110 and 115 grams, I get almost that in the finished fiber. And I spun it super thin. This may not be the most yardage I've ever gotten in a skein, but it's probably pretty close. So I'm excited for this one. This one will be listed in my shop after it takes a bath, so another couple days. But if these are your colors, you might enjoy them. I feel like the turquoise is just as bright. The green got a little, the greenish yellow got a little muted down because it is spun with other colors. Oh, and for this one, I actually did a fractal spin. So what I did is I divided the braid in half lengthwise into two pieces, and I spun one half all the way through, giving me long color repeats. And then on the other half, I divided the braid into four skinny little bits, which meant the color repeats were super fast. And so the skein should subtly stripe. And theoretically, the halves should sort of match, but I didn't spin it like specifically designated for that. So this would make a lovely shawl. It is absolutely next to the Skin Soft and so wonderful. So it would make a great cowl, a lacy shawl or scarf. And my guess is I'm going to get somewhere north of 400 yards out of it based on what I pulled off the wheel. So that just needs to be washed, and then I will take some glamour shots and get it up in the shop probably midweek. So that brings me to what I'm going to spin this week. I decided, because we're traveling this weekend, I probably won't get a full skein finished this week, and I decided to go back and do another 8-ounce spin. And this is one that you probably remember my showing you many weeks ago. gosh, it's probably several months ago now. I had 2 of these. This is Hello Yarn, like Birds of a Feather. And it is, I believe, Falkland, and it's like a muted, a somewhat muted rainbow. It's got reds and oranges and some blues and purples. I guess it doesn't have any greens, but it's a really nice fall color with also some blues and purples in there. And I have 2 bumps of this, and what I really want to do is, and now I cannot remember the name, Canyonlands. The Canyonlands shawl by Nim Teasdale, I think, is the one who, or it might be Mimnets. I cannot remember. I will bring all the details next time. Anyway, it is a beautiful shawl, and I got inspired by seeing Amanda, who is now Knit Cute, but she was so nitpicky and not a podcast and lammy toes. I got inspired by seeing her do one in 8 ounces of handspun, and so I'm going to spin this one fractal as well. So I'm going to spin this braid all the way through straight, and then the other braid I will probably break up into maybe 4 pieces lengthwise, and then I will spin that one through, and then I will ply the 2 of them together. And my hope is to get at least 600 yards. If I could get closer to 800, that would be great, but generally I do not spin quite that thin. And then I would like to knit that up. And if I finish this in the next 2 weeks, I might cast it on in November along with my sweater. Because, yeah, I've been feeling, so I go through phases. I love knitting with my handspun. I go through phases where I have things that I want to knit with my handspun and where I just want to spin and I don't care. Like I just want to spin to spin. And some of those skeins I keep, but most of those I put up in the shop. And then every so often I schedule in a spin of something that I'd like to make for myself. So this one I actually have a plan for myself because it's a shawl. I'm not too worried about weight, although I will probably check what weight it calls for. My default is probably anywhere between, well, my default's probably a sport weight at this point, sometimes closer to DK. And like I said, if I can get between 600 and 800 yards, it doesn't, and it's a shawl, it doesn't really matter to me what weight per se. So that is my plan. And we'll see what happens with that. So next weekend I'll be traveling some, although I will probably get a podcast up on Sunday. I don't know exactly what time we're going to get home, but my guess is later in the afternoon, so I'll probably do one then. Hopefully I will have a finished sweater to show you, and if I'm really lucky and knit a lot this week, maybe even a finished pair of socks. That would be so much fun, because then I could cast on for a shawl and socks. I want to knit everything, all the things. So I hope that you have had a wonderful week and that you're going into another nice week, that you are enjoying the weather where you are. I hope you're not stuck under snow unless you really want to be stuck under snow, in which case grab your knitting, stay indoors, and don't go out. So until I see you next week, I will say happy knitting, happy spinning, happy sipping, and I'll see you next time. Bye!